Happy birthday, King Charles. To celebrate, here is a very special look at his life. Welcome to a special episode of Palace Confidential to celebrate the 75th birthday of King Charles III. In this video, we've asked some of the Mail's brilliant group of royal experts for their thoughts on our new king. For more great royal videos, check out the Daily Mail's Royals channel on YouTube. Click the link above or in the description below. Let's hear from our team now.
Many moons ago, when I started doing this job, I was invited into Claret's house to meet one of the then Prince of Wales's most senior members of staff. And over a cup of tea and in front of a roaring log fire, he said with a level of candour I didn't expect that the Prince would be the first person to admit privately that he had made mistakes over the years, particularly in his personal life. But should he be expected to pay for those mistakes for the rest of his time on this earth? Now, at the time, I think there were a lot of critics who would have said yes, we'd never forgive him for what happens. But as always with these things, I think time is a healer, and people have come to accept the man that he is, with all those flaws that come with it. He is in a much happier place personally, and I think that seeps through to his professional life as well, and I think more than not people will wish him well for the future.
I thought that Charles would have a big problem when he became king. I once wrote a piece which was headlined "Why He Will Be a Meddling King," and a lot of people have had great fun ever since pointing out that he's not been a meddling king, and it is true, he hasn't meddled at all in any kind of party political way since he came to the throne. But one thing I will throw in, when he went to France on that state visit a few weeks ago, he made a speech, very well judged, in beautiful French, which went down terribly well with the host country. But it also had elements in it that I don't think his mother would have ever referred to. I mean, he took up the cudgels on his favourite hobby horse, climate change and the environment. He talked about an existential crisis facing the globe. I don't think the Queen would have ever used such strong language. Some would call it alarmist even. But that's not, I'm not judging what he said, but I am saying that possibly he has pushed what he can do and what he can say in a new direction, in a way that the Queen never did do in all her years on the throne. Now, I don't think he's about to become a crusading or campaigning king, but I don't think he's going to go completely silent either.
He told me this himself when I did a film on him for his 60th birthday. I said, you know, how are you going to adapt? And he talked about, well, I'll still have my convening power. And this is a sort of power, it's never been written down, it's not in any textbook, but it's very much how he sees his role, which is to convene people, to get people together. It's like, right, I'm not going to stand here and make a speech anymore and tell you what to do. Those days are over. But I'm putting you together in a room, get on with it. And so we've seen a lot of that since he's become king, a lot of quite focused receptions and events where he doesn't take a stand himself, but he's still having that effect of highlighting a particular issue or cause. And that has included things like the environment, it has included the Commonwealth, and I'm sure it'll carry on like that.
Some people have suggested that this will amount to only a caretaker monarchy, but I think that's to do the king a great disservice. He has always wanted his reign to provide continuity and stability, but there's still a lot he wants to do. For example, he'll be launching in the next few weeks a big coronation food project as one of his great legacies. And I think people also forget that this isn't something that his son and heir, Prince William, wants now. He has got a very young family that he wants to protect for as long as he possibly can. He wants his children to grow up unfettered by royal life for as long as they're able to. So he's very happy for his father to get on with the job that he was born to do.
After successful state visits to European neighbours Germany and France, the King faced his first real overseas test as he and the Queen visited Kenya. With Britain's troubled colonial history in the country, there were a few commentators who seemed keen to trip him up. This is something we've seen on every royal visit to Commonwealth countries, where there's a whole host of commentators looking to find fault, to see where the royal family can be criticised for sort of lording it over the locals. We saw this particularly with the Kenya trip, where commentators such as Harry and Meghan's biggest cheerleader, Omid Scobie, they highlighted a photograph of a red carpet that had been laid over a rather muddy field, and there was the King and Queen waiting to walk over it. And Scobie sort of highlighted this and said, oh, it shows how it's such a terrible look. The King and Queen, lording it over the locals, that they should have refused to stand on this red carpet. But imagine how that would have looked if they'd arrived and they started dictating to their hosts on the way that they should be greeted. We're not going to stand on that carpet, roll it back up. It would have been terrible. And these same commentators that criticised them would have had a go at them in a different direction, saying that, they're dictating to the locals. Generally, from everything I saw, and particularly from the Kenyan side of things, the King and Queen's visit was a huge success. And something which I think perhaps came as a little surprise even to them was how well received they were by younger people, particularly children. There seemed to be real enthusiasm for this sort of, friendly, jovial grandma and grandpa figures who were visiting. I think they're used to their sort of leaders as being very stern, perhaps very proud people, and to see the King and Queen having a laugh, always willing to, even have a joke at their own expense sometimes, it seemed to be very refreshing to them.
I think what we've started to see in recent months since his coronation is what an effective team the King has around him, both in front of the cameras and behind it. Of course, we've got his family, his wife, Queen Camilla, who's brought him enormous sense of personal contentment, but we have really strong female figures within his court. Although we're not going to see another female monarch for another 3 generations, we still have a lot of powerful women around the King, Charlie's Angels as they've been dubbed. We have the Princess of Wales, of course, but also the Duchess of Edinburgh and, of course, Princess Anne, who so memorably after her brother's coronation was photographed standing at his right hand, and I don't think that's any coincidence. And behind the scenes there's a strong team of really experienced people, not just courtiers but up-and-coming rising stars. The King has, for example, appointed his first Director of Community Engagements to reach marginalised communities throughout the UK. So I think far from seeing a caretaker monarch, the King is actually going to be quite a dynamic one.
I think he would like to be remembered as, he's not dead yet, he's only 75, we should point this out, but I think he would like to be remembered as a thinker, as a thoughtful man, as somebody who had certain passions that he stuck to. That's the thing about him. If you think about it, he's had 2 really big passions in his life. One is Camilla and one is the environment, and he's stuck to both. Well, I suppose architecture as well. He hasn't really changed his mind on that, but I think he's a person who's got very strong beliefs and very clear beliefs, and he's consistent. And I think he's not going to be remembered as a sort of whiz-bang monarch because he's too old, too long in the tooth. But I think if he can sort of stake his place in history as a really safe, wise pair of hands at a really difficult time, not just in Britain's, life, but in the world, then I think that will be something of an achievement, actually.
The issue of the King's birthday party was recently in the headlines over the question of whether Charles would be inviting his estranged son Harry. My colleague Rebecca English answered this in an article at the weekend. Rebecca made the point that it wasn't a big family occasion. The celebration that King Charles was having was essentially a dinner for friends. Maybe a few family members there, but not many. So there was never really a question of inviting Prince Harry. We all know that things are so bad between them that, it would take a big event to invite them, and this wasn't that type of event. It was just a small dinner for friends, and that's kind of in keeping with the King's general attitude to these celebrations. There is, perhaps it does say something that the King prefers to celebrate with friends. You can imagine that every family occasion is slightly tainted by the absence of his younger son, Or as I pointed out in my newsletter last week, would you really want Harry and Meghan there? With such an atmosphere at the moment, they would turn any jolly birthday celebration into something of a funeral.
Well, he's just made a very interesting speech where he's sort of likened it to a sort of State of the Nation address, where he's sort of painted his sort of vision of a country that really ought to be a little less confrontational, combative. People should be a bit more respectful of each other. It's a sort of appeal, really, for calm and understanding and good manners. And I think if he can help steer the nation in that direction, I think that would he would feel that was a sort of job well done. I think he'd like to see all these extraordinary charities and his creations, whether it's the Prince's Trust, the Prince's Youth Business Trust, Business in the Community, British Asian Trust. I mean, there are about 20 of them. If he could see all of those secure, stable, moving on under their own steam, he can't obviously be driving them in the way he did when he was Prince, but I think if he could see all of those continue. But I think above all, when you are the heir to a dynastic institution, the same way if you're the heir to a family company, you take over, and I think you feel a huge imperative to keep the thing going in pretty much the same state as you found it, and if you can leave it in a better condition, well, all the better. And that, for him, I think that's route number one. So if he can hand over to William in years to come, and I think it'll be many years off because he's as fit as a fiddle, I think he will feel job done.
We've got a very special montage for you today as well, featuring some very special pictures of the King from every year of his life. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed that. Join us for another episode of Palace Confidential this Thursday on the Daily Mail Royals channel. A reminder that you can click the link below to see more great royal videos.